Let's look at that. Gorgeous. That there is just dreamy. Brood in there. Brood in there. Just out this evening having a little look at my mini plus nucs here that I've got you might remember I did excuse me, I set them up last autumn and fed them well for the winter. Well, now they're needing more space again. I've already given them a third body, and because we've had such an early spring and things are booming, they're now into their fourth. So I'll flip the camera around and you can have a look. So you can see that's the first and second bodies. They overwintered on 2. That's the third I gave them, completely full built out. All full of honey. Weighs a ton, it's fantastic, and it's only what, the second week of April. You can see these here. Absolutely brilliant. These are all full of brood. Looking beautiful. Now, the weather's been really cold the last 3 days, and I'm actually lucky it has been, because we've had a bit of a problem with our hives where they got so strong so quickly and they were so honey bound that basically we weren't able to get supers on in time. I just dragged this out. It's all laid up, all beautiful. These bees are a bit runny. These are some darker bees I had, but they're fairly nice. Even though it's cold, they're still behaving themselves. You can see the brood in there. I mean, these are just absolutely booming, these colonies. So they're lovely, but I'm going to put another nuc, another body on between this one and this one, because they need space, not in the top now, they need space middle. But even though I wouldn't usually do that, I'm doing it because it's going to be so warm it's going to be warm in the next few days, and they've got plenty of bees to keep them warm. So they're going to be able to build out, and I've just checked, there's no sign of any queen cells starting yet, which is good. So, and the queen there's eggs in the cells. So, and also if there's nectar in all the spare brood cells, you need to have a very quick look to see if there's queen cells, because often you'll find that the minute you find no eggs and you find nectar in the cells, she's already stopped laying, she's already preparing to swarm, and there'll be cups they'll be making. Just wait until they're closed over. When one's closed over, they'll go. And with these mini plus, they get so strong. And the way I work it out is 2 of these frames are actually the same size as a Dadant Super. So if you imagine, it takes 4 of those frames that you see in front of you to make one normal Dadant frame. That's the volume. So imagine in a normal colony that's 10 frames, we have problems keeping them in. So imagine this is only what, 1.5 frames? Well, sorry, 1.25 frames. So we've got to keep on our toes with these. So I'm moving these bees off so I can stick the next body on, and they'll have room tomorrow. And the cold weather's actually helped me, because yeah, I know I'm using a lot of smoke, but I just want to clear these bees off before I squash them. So the cold weather is helping us. So there you go, they're now 4 now, but I'll have to watch this week, because if it goes warm, this one here is going to get full pretty quick as well. But this is what we want, because in just over about maybe 2 weeks, I'll be breaking these down to make nucs, because I'm getting my first cell builder ready tomorrow. So these are up to 4 now. I've got one next door that's already 4. I'm going to add a 5th in a minute. You've got to keep on them, because the ones that are really going will go really well. These 2 I'm going to add bodies to now as well. They'll need them, but they're only on 2 still. They're still recovering. There were smaller colonies this spring, but they're still doing fine. They were actually overwintered on 1s, they were. But when you see the honey in here, you realise just how prolific the bees have been during the last few weeks. Because we had that burst of gorgeous weather in the end of February, and then into March it was fantastic too. So everything just got going. It doesn't, once they seem to get going, the weather, it doesn't seem to stop the bees. They just keep going regardless. It's getting them started that's the issue. But these are all good. What I was saying about the cold weather helping us this year, in reality it has, because we've actually had a lot of too much overwintered honey in the hives that was never burnt, and we've gone suddenly into good weather and they've topped that back up again. So we're into a situation where we call, in France they call it blocage de pont, which means basically the queen cannot lay in the brood area because it's full of honey. It's blocked. And if you don't do something about it, in other words, you don't go and put other frames of foundation in, swarm preparations start even quicker than you think, and they'll often start not even make a big colony. They'll swarm first because there's just no room. And that's a disaster for a professional beekeeper, because you lose your honey crop and the bees that are left are tiny because they've swarmed on a smaller amount. So you've got even more work to do. So you've got to get in your colonies, make sure they've got room, give them frames of foundation, take out frames of honey just to give them something to do, just to give the bees something to build. Because if you don't, there's no room and they start swarming. It's the classic thing. No matter how good your bees are, no matter how non-swarming genetics you've got, and there's a lot of debate at the moment about, do swarmy bees swarm because they're full in a hive or because it's the genetics? Well, I would say bees are going to swarm anyway if there's no room. But it's a debate. But this cold weather, getting back to the original question, has the cold weather helped me? Yes, it has. So it's given me a few days to get around all my colonies, to give them room, to yank out frames of honey, and I've got a lot of frames of honey stored now that are waiting to go back into nucs that I'm going to make in the next few weeks when we start making our first hive. So everything is reusable. It's not like it's a problem. We've got to watch if wax moth starts, yes, but because it's still cool, we think the wax moth will be held off for a few weeks before it really gets going. If you leave a frame of honey in a hive after about May time, kiss goodbye to it within 3 weeks. Wax moth will just devour it straight away. But now, when it's still cool, you can put them in a dark shed, cover them up, you're pretty okay. So I've got around all my hives. I've got one more apiary to do tomorrow, and then they'll all have supers on. They'll all have space, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I've got them in time. I've never known a year like this, and even though I've been keeping bees for nearly 10 years now, every year is unique. Every year is different. And I've learned a lot again, that you've just got to be on the ball. You have to go when you've got to go. You can't say, oh, well, I go next week because I'm doing something else this week. It has to be this week. You have to get your stuff on. You have to have your things organised just to grab it and go. There's no doubt about that. So I'm really kind of chancing my luck here now, and I've just broken this box down. It was one of the 2 boxes. There's the top, there's the bottom. The top is already full of honey. Beautiful bees. Really nice and calm. But I'll just show you this. I mean, even the outside frame. That's the outside frame is full of brood. Just going to yank this out. I mean, that's the outside frame on. Look, there's even no room at the bottom there. So this is how desperate they are for space. But the inside is got eggs in. I can see eggs in the cells. Against the light, you can just see that. There's eggs in there. But see, the bottom bit is full of honey. They're starting to fill that bottom section. There's pollen, there's everything you need. The bees are beautiful. And I'm actually going to put this frame down if I can. I'll have a look at the one next door. That's the only problem with the Mini Plus, is you really need 2 hands. Have a look at the one next door. Just going to yank this one out, and then I want to see what the brood nest is like in there. But I just want to check for queen cells, really. So a little bit of smoke, because these guys are having to put up with a cold evening. Just knock the feeder over. It doesn't matter. There we go. So that's a nice light brood frame, but there's eggs there. I can see eggs in all those cells, and I can't see any queen cells on that. But this queen is getting pushed now. She's really, really firing off eggs well. So I know that by looking at this frame, it's telling me a lot about my colony. And this is the classic beautiful frame where there's hardly any stores in it. And what you find is, often when you have frames like this, the queen will lay and lay and lay, and they won't make any provision in each frame because all the queen is doing is laying, which is great. But if you forget to look and check, and you miss out, and when they do get a dearth, they can starve at the drop of a hat. So let's have a look at this frame. Another brood nest full of brood. This is just terrific. I mean, exactly what I want to see. I mean, it's just terrific. I know this colony is going to explode this week coming. So let's see if I can find the queen here. Because I think this is, I haven't looked at the box, I think this is one of my inseminated queens. That's why everything's so beautiful. That's why these bees are so nice. It's another nice frame of brood. The queen might be in the top section anyway though. We'll have a look. She is marked. Move this brood. These bees are behaving really. It's only about 8 degrees at the moment. I'm really pushing my luck being in here tonight. But I'm just popped out while dinner's on. Another nice frame of brood. Just popped out while dinner's on because I wanted to just get these supers on to give them some more space. But these are just unbelievable. Just wonderful. All that's going to hatch out in the next week. And these bees are going to be stuck for space. So I'm so glad I'm putting the space on now. Because as I said, they all need it. So this is the end frame that's got some space on it. I don't know where the queen is, I might have missed her, but there's another box here, she could be in that box. But I'm just going to put this back together. Now I've seen the state of this, I'm almost tempted to give 2 frames, 2 bodies of space, but 1 will be enough for now, because this is not the biggest colony, but it's going to be huge by next week when that, all that brood hatches out. But it's wonderful, you know, great to see. That's what I'm talking about. You've got to monitor these colonies so carefully when you've got a lot of brood hatching and a lot of nectar going in. They just explode, absolutely explode. Look at that, gorgeous. Now, as I say, these I'll be thinking about breaking these down in a week and a half to 2 weeks when my first queen cells are, a few days before my first queen cells are going to be ready. And then let's move these bees out of the way. I want to squash those. And they'll all be broken down. And to break down these colonies when the bees are like this is just a joy, you know? It's absolutely joyous. Just want some of these knocked off because I never get this frame back in otherwise. That was the outside bit. Back in we go. The top box I just looked through, given them space, and that middle one now is now the space, and I've looked at the top box, it's just full of brood and honey and frames of eggs, so I'm delighted I've given this space. Otherwise she would have run out next week when all that hatched, but I haven't found the queen. I'm not going to continue looking because it's one of those evenings where I'm not pushing my luck. You've got to know when to say, no, enough is enough. That frame is actually the wrong way around because all the shoulders are still on the outside now. There we are. So, and what a lovely colony to work with. I wish they were all like this, to be honest, but unfortunately they're not. That is good, but that's full of honey and brood, so that's going to go on top here. Tomorrow they'll have enough space now to build in again, and they'll be filling out. But it just shows you the kind of state we've got things at the moment. Everything is just exploding. These actually all had protein on about 3 weeks ago. They've eaten a whole lot, and that's probably why they're doing so well. But I've tried that this year, and I found that pollen sub for me does seem to have an effect. But even though we had pollen coming in at the same time, I can't say for sure whether it would or wouldn't. There's no control because they all had it. But to be honest, they're all stronger than I've ever seen them. So I'm going to feed actually a bit in the autumn, and I'm going to feed early January next year when our bees start to fly January, February. So we shall see. It's all good. I've got 2 sacks of Ultra Bee coming down and 1 bag of brewer's yeast to give a bit of bite to it and see and try different formulas of that. So it's all a bit exciting. I was just lifting this box up, and that's how careful you've got to be. You see there's a little orange dot in there, and that's a numbered queen. That means she's inseminated. See, that's why it's important. She has to be in there. There's the girl that's responsible. A beautiful inseminated queen. She was inseminated by Alicia last summer. Her mother was a Kel Brandstrup queen from Netherlands, and the father was, well, from a bank of drones from a French breeder called Duguay. So they're all absolutely beautiful bees and prolific and gentle. And she is gorgeous. So I so desperately want to keep these with space so I don't lose this queen. She doesn't fly, but she is clipped, and she's now hiding between this frame. But that's what happens when you get good bees. It's just so lovely to work with. You know, it's just an utter joy. It's why the Mini Plus are so good, because you do get a bit more flexibility in them, and you do get a bit more time before you have to do something before they swarm. I just drag this one out and you'll see. Look at that. I mean, it's just starting to hatch up. There's no room in it. They're just laid up. brood, brood, brood. It's just awesome. Another one, full. Look at the bees in here, look. Just too many bees. It's fantastic. Packed full. Woohoo! So we'll take this top off. They're just finishing off this pollen side, but it went a bit dry. This is too dry for them to eat now, but they've eaten the rest of it. I mean, it's just terrific. I mean, you know, absolutely gorgeous bees. Just exploding. That's what you want to see. I'll have a look at this, just so I've seen the brood. I've always actually liked to see brood because you never know anything nasty on it. You just want to see that brood just for a minute, just to say you've seen it, you know. Let's look at that. Gorgeous. That there is just dreamy. Brood in there. Brood in there. These are all inseminated queens from last summer that Alicia did. As mentioned before, she did a fantastic job. I mean, when you start doing inseminated queens, the difference is just unreal, you know. They're so much nicer. That frame's obviously been hatching more. That one's being laid up. But it's just absolutely, as I said before, dreamy. You know, no gloves. Even though it's cold, the bees aren't grumpy. Just unreal. Beautiful. More space going on. So they'll have more space to work on to tomorrow when the weather gets warmer, which it's supposed to. It is. My fingers are actually feeling cold now. You know, ridiculous. So the honey in there, look, too much, but it's good. I've got there in time. So they've got honey now. I'm actually going to take off this last of this. Well, I might take that last of that pollen sub off, chuck that away. These bees will go back in fine because they're underneath that. They won't get damaged. So all the hives now that were anything worth keeping. I had a couple of, there's a drone layer. This one here became drone laying, and that's now just about died out, but that's produced early drones. So I'm quite pleased with that actually. So give me some drones. A couple there, that one died out as well. But that's what happens with beekeeping. This was my best queen from last year, and she's absolutely fantastic. But isn't everything booming? Despite us having cold weather, it's just build, 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 you know? Delighted with it all. I'm gonna have to put this down while I smoke these bees off. No smoke needed, but I'm just gonna use smoke to clear these bees off to try and get them out of the way. Because I need to get this cover back on quickly. I've got to go up and get some food. It's now 8:15 and we're losing the sun now and it's cold. Come on, bees. I don't want them to get damaged. Off there. What do you get? Down they go. I can see brood there. Everywhere I look there's brood. It's just amazing. It's like so nice to see this time of year all your brood. So this is one of my breeder queens, as I said before, but I'm going to have to give this one space, and I'm giving it a new comb. I can see brood there, I can see brood there, I can see brood there. 3 frames of brood, brood there, brood there, brood there. I'm giving it a frame of drone brood when I come back. I'm giving it a frame of drone brood when I come back tomorrow. I've got some 20 sheets of drone foundation I bought, because now's that time of the year where we're going to be making queen cells, and I want drones. I should have put the drone foundation on last week, but there's also a lot of drone comb in the colonies anyway. But what I'm doing is enhancing the drone comb, and I'll be putting a load in tomorrow and Monday in all my best queens. I'll have over 20 sheets in this apiary alone, which will be a mating station, so it will help. So that's a little bit about looking at my Mini Plus, and as I said, I will be breaking them down soon, and I'll do a better video on that. I'll probably do a video on the whole thing about these Mini Plus and why I use them and the benefits for them, because I've looked at using the Apideas and I've looked at using Nucs, and the Mini Plus seem to be pretty good overall for many things, and I'll try and explain some of the reasons why. But there's pros and cons for everything you use. That's the thing about beekeeping. Nothing is perfect. You have to find what works for you. Catch you again soon.